sat back and really tried to develop a legacy, guideline for myself. And I tried to define who and what I wanted to be. And so as an individual, I consider myself to be very strategical. I pride myself on trying to be innovative, and I'm always looking to grow. And in order for me to be transformative, which is the key word in this conversation, is that I have to do all these things with intentionality. Strategically, I'm all for promoting diversity and inclusion, really driven behind the idea that I want to create a world my daughters can work and thrive in. Innovatively, I like to use data and analytics. I think innovation distinguishes people. And lastly, personal development of growth. I like people like John Wooden. I think about John Wooden primarily because of the legacy that he had of being a leader. Many people talk about the many national championships he won, but I look at people pride themselves on being part of the wooden tree. And for me, one day I hope to have a Whitfield tree. I'll put the definition of transformative in this conversation because transformative is causing or able to cause an important and lasting change in someone or something. And that's what I hope to do, is be able to create a lasting impression on those that it changes for the positive. So just in, normal terms of, Ray has his Rayisms, I'm going to do some of mine tonight. So here comes some of mine, Johnnyisms. So the first thing that I want to share with you guys is come from Dr. Eric Thomas. So he states that you are where you are because of how you think. And if you could just change your thinking, you could change your world. And so for me, when I think about my thinking, it started with one question. What's my why? What is your why? Because see, the why is the most important question you will ever ask yourself as a real estate investor. Because your why will actually drive your wheels. It will drive your strategy. It will motivate you. It will inspire you, and it will require of you. And so when I think about my why, and I want to speak of it in terms proverbially, is my family. I can sit here and tell you guys, in my mind, there's no better looking family in the world than that picture that you see on the screen today. And I say that because, as it says in the first scripture, there is he who finds a wife finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. When I look at that picture, it's obvious that I obtain favor from the Lord. The second piece is happy is the man that finds wisdom and the man that gets understanding. And so as I continually pursue learning new things, I'm gaining more understanding. And as a result, my life has become much more pleasant. Thirdly, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. As you see my young ladies there standing in the photo, my goal is to leave an inheritance not only for them, but for their children. And then lastly, iron sharpens iron, as Ray alluded to early on. So one man sharpens another. I hope that I grow into a person that I'm able to continue to sharpen those that are also sharpening me. So the next Johnnyism that go on top of that is that every day in every way, just get a little better. And I say that because many people get lost in the pursuit of excellence, not recognizing that it's the incremental improvements that you have every single day that's going to lead you to that successful plateau that you're trying to reach. And so my why, as I talked about earlier with my family, was really based around one thing, right? When we start talking about real estate, was establishing wealth. And someone say, why do you want to establish wealth? Is because for me, it's two important pieces of that. That is, I want to create generational impact and financial freedom. So you look at my family and you saw a lot of questions that I know I have to be able to solve over the next few years, right? I got 3 young ladies that will probably attend college. Somebody's got to take care of that. There's monetary distributions that I want to make with my family. All 3 of them I plan to marry and walk down the aisle one day, and I want to be able to pay for that. There's also that fiscal education. I want to teach them the things that I've learned so that they can build upon the success that we've been able to develop thus far as a family. From a financial freedom perspective, it's really about being debt-free. That's been a pursuit of mine. It's been debt-free. And be able to self-employ myself if given the right times. As many of us, we all have a desire of retiring early. And then ultimately, we want to take those funds as a family and travel. That's kind of one of the key drivers for engaging in this activity. So these are my whys when you think about why we're involved in this real estate game. But I talked about earlier that your whys will drive your wheels. So the first wheel is really around strategies. And so what is your strategy? For everyone on this call, everyone's going to have to address it from their own, vantage point or viewpoint. Some will have money to invest, some will not have access to money, or some may have very little money. And as a result, when you go through that decision tree and ask yourself those series of questions, it will help you develop the strategies you need to employ. For me, I focused around trying to increase our net worth, but also I was looking for passive income. And how do I do that? It really molded to a strategy of trying to create real estate investments where we're going to leverage those investments to have rentals to generate that passive income. I wasn't in it for the flip game because I actually had access to capital at the time. And so that's what drove my strategy. But as we evolve, your strategy will evolve with it. And so I wanted you guys to make sure you think about your why is what's going to help develop your strategy. Many of you heard different speakers talk about how they've approached this real estate game, and you may try to mimic that. But I'm challenging you to make sure you mimic it from the standpoint of, is it driving your answer to the question of why? And if it's not, then that's not the right strategy for you. So I want you to make sure you focus on what's good for you. And so my next Johnnyism to go along with that is, it's got a picture of my dad there. We country boys by heart, and you guys have heard me tell you that before, but this is my dad's garden. He spends a lot of hours out there. He's retired. And so for me, man, I wanted to build on it, on the legacy of, it's important that you find your garden and grow where you plant it. And the quote that I give on this one is really original, because I think that many people, if people would just grow where they're planted, they would eventually bear fruit. Unfortunately, everyone thinks that they would be better in a different garden. Too many times people are looking over the fence, looking across the street, checking on different folks that they idolize, not recognizing that they're in the place they need to be, and that's where they should try to grow. And so that's important, because when you understand that, it will drive you. It will drive your motivation, which is the second one, right? And so will it motivate you, right? That's your why. And so I have a question to everyone on the call. So you can put this in the chat, answer it how you want, and we'll talk through it. But I want to know, when everyone's on the call, are you a lion or are you a gazelle? That's the question. Lion or gazelle? So I need to see in the chat if you're a lion or you're a gazelle. Talk to me. Anybody out there, where you at? All right. So let's talk about it. I see a lot of lions on here, and that's cool. I see a lot of lions getting popped up. No gazelles yet. It's all right. So I'm still in this quote and this story from Dr. Eric Thomas, who I listen to quite regularly, but I love the way he phrases it, right? He says, every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and a lion wakes up. And it knows, the gazelle, it must run faster than the fastest lion or the slowest gazelle, or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up. It knows it must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. So the reality of it is, it doesn't matter whether you're a lion or a gazelle. The important piece of this story is that when the sun comes up, you better be running. And so when you engage this real estate investment game that we're talking about, when that sun comes up, you better be running. Because if not, there are lions out there and there's gazelles running faster than you. So I'm challenging you guys, whether you're a lion or gazelle, make sure you're up and running. So what motivates me? When I think about the motivation that I had when I started talking about real estate, it allowed me to become fiscally aware of everything I do. I think about every dollar I spend now and how that impacts the future that I want to have. And as you get more ingrained into this real estate game, you'll become more cognizant of how you spend the money that you have as well. The other piece is discipline becomes easier to embrace. When you talk about, I want to get this house, I want to get in the real estate game, you say, oh, you got to save some money. Or where am I going to get this, capital to invest into a property, or rehab a property, or flip a property, or house hack? You'll learn that you got to establish some level of discipline. And what I speak about discipline is, you got to be able to differentiate your wants from your needs. My mom used to say that all the time. You got to be able to tell the difference between your wants and your needs, because what you want may not be what you need. And when you're trying to become, financially solvent, sometimes you got to be able to call out some of the wants so that you can get to the needs. The other piece I tell you is that you'll become intrigued by all aspects of the real estate game. You'll find yourself trying to learn. You'll be reading books, listening to blogs, watching HGTV, anything you can do so that you can invest in yourself, so that you can learn new skills that will support the vision. And I challenge people to do that. Learn how to do something that you may not already know how to do that will support the vision that you have. That's a key. And I applaud several of you all that's joined this Real Estate Millionaires Club as a key starting point for that. The other piece I'll challenge you with your motivation is that mediocrity will not lead to wealth. Being average won't be enough. And if you just want to be average, I'm going to tell you this game is not for you. Okay? Again, we're talking about, are you a lion or are you a gazelle? That's what's important. So, my next Johnnyism. So you all say you want to be excellent, right? I touched on the mediocrity. People are like, oh, that's not me. I'm all about excellence. I'm all about doing the best that I can. I want to be better, right? Well, I will give you this quote from Cherry Hubbard, and it's actually a book, pretty good book to read. It talks about how you do anything is how you would do everything. So let that sink in for a second. So how you treat anything you have in life is how you do everything in life. And so in order for you to become this millionaire that you aspire to be, I challenge you that you got to start operating in a spirit of excellence in everything that you do. And so we talk about wheel number 3, and that is to inspire. For me, I learned that this opportunity to be a real estate investor is really about inspiration. And for my business, I recognize that one of the greatest joys that we are able to give as a real estate investor is give people a place that they will call home. And you see, I put home in bold because all of us know what home really means. So I believe my properties are a catalyst of someone's success. Someone will be able to go out there and achieve their goals because they can come home every night with a roof over their head, things running well, and they're able to have peace at mind. I also recognize when I see the families that join and come into our properties, I know that memories will be made on my properties. Several will be celebrating Christmas here in the next few days on my property. Lives will be changed on my properties. And so I say all that because to me, as a real estate investor, it's important to recognize that we're blessed to be a blessing. One of the key things that we do in my organization is that I try to celebrate Christmas with each one of my tenants every year. Now, like I said, small town, we do things, hey, something happens in the family. Well, now people cook for you. That's what they do in small town America. So I started out with, hey, we're going to give everybody a fried turkey. Now, that was when we only had 2 properties at the time. Now that we've grown a little bit, it's like, hey, that's a little bit of extra work that I wasn't really wanting to sign up for. So we now give them a gift card so they can go choose, whatever they choose to have on that Christmas day as a gift from Pearl Diamond Investments. I also support community efforts with charitable giving. I recognize that one of the key things that we're able to do is enhance the lives of our community. And having that structure, that asset, that home is part of that ecosystem that we're trying to enhance. And so I try to also add monetary contributions that can actually be coupled with that home to be able to make our world a better place. And lastly, when I talk about blessed to be a blessing, I love to share my experiences and what I learned. And I say that because people have shared with me. I'm where I am because people have shared their experiences and what they learned. And I hope to be able to return that in multiple, in many folds. Ownership and running a business really is a tribute to my ancestors. Because see, where I'm from, people didn't always have opportunities to own things, nor did they have an opportunity to run a business. We were fortunate enough to be able to go to work. And so for me, I know that I'm now standing on the shoulders of those that didn't have that opportunity. And it's enough to me to make sure that I'm building on that legacy to take it further. And lastly, I say I'm able to employ people that I've grown to know. When you are bringing out someone to do work on your property, be it heating and air, be it electrician, many of those people that I actually are engaged with are people that I grew up with or have close dealings with from a family perspective. And I say that it's almost like, man, a joy that comes across your heart when you know that you're not only helping the people that live there, you're also helping everyone else in your community by investing in their efforts and their work. And so for me, that's where that third wheel is, of inspiring. The last wheel that I would touch on is about what it will require. It will require you to be different. And the first thing I want to challenge you is that you will have to break the employee mindset. So many of you go to approach this thing like you approach your job today. So many of you will be looking around for the boss to tell you what to do. You're sitting there watching the clock. You only want to put in the minimum amount of time and effort. And when a problem arises, your complaint like that is going to solve it. The key piece about being a real estate investor is that you now are the problem solver, and your creativity is a must, because everything that you come across will have its own set of uniqueness. Every deal will be unique. Every property will be unique. Every tenant you engage with will be unique. And you have to change your mindset. No one's going to solve the problem for you. That is your problem to solve. And for me, that's exciting. That's what I like to do. But for many people, they shy away from that opportunity because they have that employee mindset. They're looking for someone to tell them what to do. And in this game, you got to flip that. And so when we think about, again, what's your why, I hope that you understand that your why is driven behind the idea that it's your wheel, right? It's your wheels that will make a difference, right? It's your wheels. So don't forget, your wheel is what drives your why. So I'm going to transition now from just that, inspirational conversation to talk to you a little bit about the organization that I have the privilege of running, right? And so a company name is Pearl Diamond Investments, LLC. I put a couple pictures up there to the right for those that may want to, ask questions on how that name was formulated. It actually formulated from the fraternity and sorority of my wife and I. So Pearl Diamond Investments. And I'm going to talk to a few things about how it started, talk about conquering fear, how it's going, embracing technology, lessons learned, and our future plans within the organization. As you see there, we were incorporated in Oklahoma in 2015. Currently, I like to underline the word currently, we're focused on real estate investment. So how it started. I brought these pictures up here to take my boy Ray back a little bit. We used to go to lunch, and here are some of my favorite places I put on a picture. We used to go to Florence's and Grub over in Dale City. That was our spot. And, Ray used to ask me about my financial goals in these conversations. And I would learn through these conversations and through sharing my answers that my plan wasn't complete. I was fully vested in paper assets, along with slow, methodical growth in savings accounts. And that was my goals. Like, that was how I was going to get there. And through the conversation, I realized that my family goals, my retirement goals, and my personal goals were not attainable within that current plan. And so it challenged me. I had recently been promoted and awarded a cash bonus, and I'm sitting there thinking, what am I supposed to do with this money that I've been blessed with? What should I be doing that's going to propel me to the future that I desire? And so another key factor in it was I was intrigued by Mr. Ray. I was intrigued by his financial freedom that he exhibited and spoke of. And so through a lot of those conversations, I began to ask about his real estate. And he began to open up and share more and more and more. And I was hooked. I was just listening. I was always looking forward to lunch because I knew there was going to be a nugget that was going to be offered that I could take to build my real estate organization here. And so I'll talk to some of you all out here that I know are fearful, right? I'm an engineer by trade. I'm very analytical. I got to run the numbers. I'm going to proof it. I'm going to check it. I'm going to verify and validate it before I even look at making my first step. I'm one of those, they say, I'm going to aim again before I shoot. And many times, if you take that long to shoot, what you're shooting for is probably already gone. But I titled this slide, "The Scared Money Don't Make Money," right? And I say that jokingly because, the guys in the streets would talk about scared money don't make money when they were trying to gamble and put off little bets here and there. But I really want to challenge you all to think about, how do I get over that fear? So for me, one of the first things I did, I think, to help me get over the fear is that I created, my own spreadsheet. And And I actually make a note, the spreadsheet that we made with the first foundations class is probably one of the best ones. I use it now instead of my original one. And I began to play with the numbers over and over. I kept refining my model with more insights through various conversations. And I began to collect data on things like supplies and materials and ask how much labor costs for rehab activity. So I'm walking around Lowe's and I'm thinking in my head, how much is a square foot of carpet? How much is paint? How much is light bulbs? How much is a ceiling fan? All these things that I knew that once I start walking through homes, I'm like, that home's gonna need this, it's gonna need this, it's gonna need that. And I had to get that level of data to get me comfortable with the idea of how can I come up with a actual remodel cost. And I tell you, it went through various iterations. And I got better at it. And I tried to refine it in a way that, hey, I now understand what that cost looks like. But I wasn't all the way there yet. To tell you the truth, I wasn't always all the way there. And so I also knew what I could do. So, with the help of my dad, who was very resourceful, he's handy, he's retired, he's really good with his hands. And I knew that, growing up with him, we did a lot of things out in our own house or in the yard or in the neighborhood or whatever. And that I knew that I could learn from him, and I knew things that I had already learned. Right. So I knew how to, do certain tasks and functions. And so therefore, I knew some things that I can do on my own with the given time and resources that I could offset some of that labor cost. So that helped me along the way in making this determination whether to shoot, right, instead of sitting there continuing aiming. Now, I initially overestimated repair costs, and I also planned for the unforeseen. And I'll be honest with you guys, this disqualified a lot of potential opportunities early on because I didn't have a clear picture of what certain things that could happen or occur. I overestimated repair costs to ensure that I gave myself enough buffer that I knew that my first deal had to be a good deal or it would be discouraging for me to move forward. I also knew that I want to limit my risk. So my price point and the model that I created was really on the low end. I was looking around at OKC and I was looking at houses. I was going around looking at homes in different parts of the city. And then one day I just happened to look at homes in my hometown of Okmulgee, Oklahoma. And man, what got me going was I saw the entry point to those homes to be much less. And I also saw these homes actually being on the market for longer periods of time, which in my mind gave me an idea that there wasn't a sea full of sharks. One thing in Oklahoma City, anytime you see a good deal, they don't last long. They don't last long here. And so I chose to participate in an area where I felt like I had an advantage of not being, in a competitive environment where I can grow myself and my skills before I jump into the big pond. And so, we talked about how I started. I want to share with y'all how it's going. And so that picture there is my first purchase ever made, 2015, 3-bedroom, 1-bath home for $21,000. I was nervous. If I'm telling you the truth, I was extremely nervous because I knew at that point I had to put $4,000 down and the rehab cost me roughly $2,000. And I'm $6,000 in the hole. Again, remember I tell you, I'm the numbers guy. So I'm sitting there counting, I'm in the hole. And what am I going to do? How am I going to get over, the hurdle of making this up? And so I knew that my mortgage payment was roughly $220 a month. And so I said, I have a few months before this becomes a problem. And so that's what kind of got me through the initial phase of this. And again, I told you I had the cash distribution that occurred. So I was sitting still okay. I wasn't in the hole. I hadn't reached into our own personal funds to make this venture start. And so, as I talk about how it's going today, we're currently now sitting with 7 properties and 5 of them free and clear. My goal initially was to have 5 and 5. That was my goal. And hey, it's 2020 and I got 5 of them paid for. So 5 years and 5 and 5 was my goal. I actually employed the snowball method where I, looked at adding additional properties, and then I began to cash flow and then snowball to remove the debt that I had in the first property and so forth. And so since then, I began to change my method so that I can have more cash available. So I'm not snowballing these last 2. I'm actually slow playing them so that I can continue to build my cash reserve up to invest in more deals. And I'll tell you, when we think about the mathematical model that we've put together and we've shared and talked about through Ray's learnings, the gross rent multiplier was a key indicator for me. For this home alone, the gross rent multiplier is roughly about 2.5 years. And so, for me, it was very encouraging to know that I could get my money back in less than 5 years. And so, I talk about that because I was initially concerned about what I had at stake. And so I wanted to make sure I removed the risk of what I had at stake as fast as I could. And so I quickly bought a second property after this first one. I think I bought it within 2 to 3 months of the first property. And part of my thinking in that was really was revolving around the idea that I knew that if I had at least one of the properties rented, that I could pay the mortgages for both of them. And so that gave me my confidence. I said, okay, if I can always keep one of these rented, I'm never paying out of my pocket. And I got in the mindset at that point that I realized that the tenant was paying for the deal. That's when it registered for me, that their monthly rent was paying for me to call myself an investor. And so that and all has really changed my whole perspectives on how I approach things. And so that's why I said my snowball method is slowly moving toward more of trying to build a cash reserve. As of today, my annual net incomes, cash flow are roughly around $40,000. And I share that because you'll hear my goals, how I've changed. My goal is focused around that component. I purchased homes through multiple avenues. I've purchased homes through for sale by owner. I've won, I think, 2 or 3 auctions. I've got a car property foreclosed, bank-owned property, and I actually bought a home that was actually an MLS property. So, that's kind of where I've kind of dibbled and dabbed. And then the last piece, I think, which is for me is the icing on the cake, is that I currently employ my dad as the property manager. So I pay him every month just to make sure we collect rent. Now, I'll be honest, he steps in and handles a lot of the little small things that pop up. And so, it makes things very easy to manage from my perspective. But it also is preparing me for that day when I want to grow the actual portfolio where I would want a property management group to run it. And so I'm getting myself prepared and leveraged for that moment. The other piece I'll tell you is that it's important that you embrace technology. Learning how to do things utilizing technology will save you time and energy later. Old days, and I don't want to pick on any of the old schoolers out there, but they physically want to drive by, physically want to go look at this. They're sitting there doing things that is antiquated. And I challenge you to make sure you embrace technology as soon as you can. Don't wait until you have 4 or 5 properties before you start utilizing some of the software that's out there. Start it right off the bat. It will make life so much easier for you, and you will get processes in place that makes things run seamless. And so, find your software to perform your accounting function. I got to share with you guys, I use Quicken for real estate investors. This weekend, I spent a few hours just trying to unpack Stessa, which is assets spelled backwards. But it's a freeware, and it is pretty powerful. It has all capabilities that my Quicken has. And like I said, it doesn't cost you a dime. And so from that perspective, I would employ most of you guys as just started out to look at something like Stessa as an opportunity to begin performing your accounting. The other piece I say, learn how to get as much property information as you can digitally. Ray's been phenomenal in sharing you some of the nuggets and insights that he has on how he gains information from the different listing sites, the county records. I even pull up Google Earth at times because some of the times the photos that the real estate agent puts in a listing, they're a little deceiving. They don't want to give you the full 360 view. You don't even know what the neighbors look like or what's across the street. And so those factors are things that you need to consider when you're looking at evaluating the property value. And so I'm challenging you to make sure you leverage technology as best as you can so they can save yourself time and energy. Because you'll find out sometime there's deals that you would not have even entertained if you knew of its given surroundings. And then lastly, we've talked a lot about spreadsheets, but create yourself a property valuation model. Something that, and I titled the code to the safe, code to the safe. That's the key to really understanding how you're going to make money. is having that model that you can pull out and you can whip out at any given time and be able to say, is this a good deal or not? And that's something that you will get better and better with, but you're not gonna get better with if you don't start creating it or start playing with it. You know, it's one of those things that it's the hidden secret to wealth, in my opinion. It's creating a property evaluation model that you can be able to rely on. And so as we move from embracing technology, I want to take a little bit of time and share with you guys some of the things that I've learned, right? And so I broke it up into twofold here: best practices and then my mistakes. And so some of the best practices I'll share with you is really, man, know the market. Who are you trying to I got a tag here, that's wrong. And who are you trying to attract? Sorry, that's a mistypo there. But you know, you need to be very cognizant of, you know, where you're at. You know, if you're in a neighborhood that is more on the low economic side, then you invested into that property and you're going there putting in marble floors. Guess what? You're not going to get that money back out because there's not anybody moving in that's going to pay that rent at the rate that you hope to, make sure that you make up for those investments. And so, you know, I'm just challenging you to make sure you know your market. Look around when you're in your market. How many other homes are being rented? How many homes are for sold? You know, what does the neighbors look like? Is everybody leaving the area? Is there something going on? Be very cognizant of your area and your market. You know, another piece I'll say is try to keep hardwood floors. You know, I shared with one group before when I was showing a house that we were rehabbing, you know, the ability to pull up carpet and refurbish those floors. You know, we've found that's to be very successful. I think it's very economical, and actually it looks real good. I think it looks real good. And I say that because I've had the experience of having carpet in a couple homes. And when you have a tenant change over after a couple, 2 or 3 years, honestly, that carpet doesn't just hold up, you know, and you have to replace it. And so I'm starting to look at now when I do my initial investment that I'm trying to mitigate or minimize the amount of replacement costs I have once I change tenants. The other part here I put is focus on kitchen and bathroom. You know, and I know this may come across maybe not politically correct, but understand and hear me out here. Women usually make the decision on the style of living that a family has. And when you have a nice kitchen, a nice bathroom, that tends to create the wow factor that lets them recognize this is a place that they can call home. And so focus on that kitchen and bathroom because it will pay dividends in attracting the right tenant. You know, the other piece I say, invest in good appliances and equipment. You know, if you don't invest in the good appliances and equipment up front, it's a pay me now or pay me later. One thing you don't want to have, and this is where I think people struggle when they say they don't like being real estate investors, is because they're always getting called out middle of the night or getting these phone calls, this broke and I got to fix this and I got to fix that. And I would challenge you to make sure you don't fall in the trap of just trying to do the simple, repair. Because many times what those appliances or equipment is telling you that you are having, some other issues that is going to really cost you in the long run. And so I tend to try to deploy a strategy of more replace versus repair when we get into appliances and equipment. The other piece I talk about is best practice. And I stand on this one very, very well because it's allowed me to make tough decisions. And that is have corporate policy to help steer decisions on personal matters. You know, we talk about things about Ray had the section on how to attract the right tenants and how to go through renter qualifications. Having those lists of questions that you're going to ask of that renter and having answers in your policy that says, we will not rent to someone that does not have 3 times the rent amount in monthly income, or we will not rent to someone that has this. It allows you to be able to make decisions that may become personal to you because you just like the person, or the person gives you this hardship, or this, everybody got a good sob story. One thing I'll tell you about being a real estate investor is that you learn that everybody got a problem and something's going on, and you have to be able to discern all that. You know, one of the biggest pieces for me is that, man, people hit me pretty hard about they really want to rent the property, but they have pets. And one of the rules that we have, I do not allow pets. And initially, I'll tell you, it tugs on you because those people may have the right income, everything look good. You're like, man, I really want this tenant, but they got pets. And I initially used to be concerned that I'm losing out on people. But what I've learned is that, like I have today, all properties are rented. I don't have anything vacant. So pets isn't a problem. right? And so, I let them have pets in the backyard on a few of the homes, but I don't want pets inside the house. And so that's one thing that has allowed me to be able to make the right decision versus being able to be tugged on from a personal matter. And then lastly, stick to your contract. When people show you who they are, believe them. Because there's nothing you're going to say. There's no addendum that you have to the contract. There's no, here's my last warning conversation that you're going to have with that tenant is going to change who they are. And so once people reveal themselves to you, believe it and move on from there. Because as I go into my mistakes, you'll see that, for me, one of the keys was early on, I lost out on a few deals over an amount that was less than a couple of months' rent. I was so focused on trying to win the deal at all costs. I didn't build myself enough room to allow some compromise. I walked away from a deal over $1,000 when I was going to rent the property for $600 to $700 a month. And I look back going, was I being stubborn? Why didn't I put that number back in the model and let it show me that I didn't lose much, that my return on equity or my return on investment did not change by that $1,000, or that all the different factors that we measure in regards to being a good deal was not as impacted. It was my pride that got in the way. But the other piece I would say is, initially I did not maximize rent, and I didn't understand the value of certain amenities. So, I looked in my hometown. I knew that to rent an apartment in my hometown, a 2-bedroom apartment cost X. And so I had my first home, I told you, a 3-bedroom apartment. I went slightly above that 2-bedroom apartment amount just because I said I got to attract the right people. I didn't understand the market enough. And so I rented that house for a couple of years, undervalued. I've been able to raise it up since then. Actually got a new tenant in there, so we went back. I got to market rate, but I did not maximize my rent early on. And so it just was me not knowledgeable enough of the market. And then understand the value of certain amenities. I have a property that actually has window unit, AC units. And then most of them have central heating and air. And I didn't understand the value between the two. People would pay more for central heating and air than the window unit. And I was listing properties the same way. And so again, it was me not understanding the value of certain amenities in the market that I was playing in. The other piece I'd say is a mistake that I learned was that I renewed a tenant that was not taking care of one of my properties. You go in there, it was trashy. We had roaches, and that just drove me nuts. But I renewed it with the idea that we went in there and tried to help clean it up, like the person was going to change. And that's where I go back to my comment about when people show you who they are, believe them. It took me a lot to get that apartment cleaned up and back to a level where I feel comfortable actually renting it back out after I had to get this tenant out of there. And so again, make sure that you when someone show you who they are, follow your guidelines and don't waver in it. The other piece I'd say was not stockpiling when I find a deal. I remember one of the first homes we put some laminate flooring in, and we came across a deal that they had this laminate flooring. Man, it was discounted, at a pretty decent rate. And I thought about the time I only bought enough to fill that house. I should have bought that whole pallet that was sitting there, because since then I've probably put laminate flooring in 3 or 4 other homes, and I could have done it much cheaper. And so not stockpiling on things. When you walk around Lowe's and Home Depot, you see they have those, you might see a refrigerator that got a little dent in it and it's at a really good price or stuff like that. I wasn't doing that before. And now I do look at that, look for those when I'm in those areas. Things like paint. Had the same scenario. We had actually a paint being discontinued, but the guy was like, I can take it and turn it into a tan. And he didn't charge nothing for it. And I bought enough just to paint the home. And I should have got a couple buckets of that paint just so that I would be prepared for the future. Another mistake I made was understanding insurance terms. The first insurance agent that I worked with, I went out, and my whole idea and thinking was that I wanted to cover my investment. I wanted to cover what cash I had in the home. And so I allowed that agent to generate some actual terms where we were covering just that amount. But once I learned more about insurance in relationship to what I was actually trying to ensure was that in the event that the house was actually destroyed or whatever, I would have got a fraction of what I had been paying on. And so that at that point, I would have lost a lot of my investment. It wasn't large money, but it was my money. And so for me, I learned that at that point, I need to be more cognizant of how insurance works and what I should be doing to ensure that I don't lose anything from that sector. And then lastly was not optimizing tax deductions. And that is looking for every opportunity in which you're spending that is associated with your business to be applied to your tax deduction. And that's where I challenge you guys to really look at the different software and tools out there that will make some of these things easy. Because I will tell you personally, I'm not an organized person in that way. And so keeping up the receipts, putting it together. I mean, like I said, that's man, you could take a screenshot photo with your phone of your receipt and upload it and then tag it to a certain property. I mean, those type of things, I think, is where we're going with technology. And that's what I would advise people on this team to actually look at. And then when I get into, what I've learned, move on to the last comment about the future of Pearl Diamond. And so my first goal is to have $100,000 in annual net income from real estate by 2025. That's my goal for 2025. I also am looking to expand the business model to include a property management component. Because I believe as I continue to grow in the number of houses that I have, I'll be property managing it. So why not grow and do more of it? And then the third piece is, as I talked about earlier, is currently real estate investment. And that is, we want to expand outside of what we do today and be a seed investor to new minority businesses. I put the shark as the emblem because I want to have the black shark tank at some level. And so that's my goals. And that's the future of Pearl Diamond investment. And so as I wrap up today and I think about, the minority real estate millionaires, I'm going to share this story with you and hopefully it resonates to understanding the value and importance of this community that Mr. Ray has established. And so, I can say that I'm fortunate enough and blessed to being able to travel to Northern California and be able to see the redwoods. And I'll tell you, if you've never seen the redwoods, it is a phenomenal feat. Again, I shared with you guys earlier, I'm a country boy. So when I see a tree that big, it blew me away. I remember standing on that ground floor, looking up, and I couldn't see the top of the tree. I remember being able to stand inside of a tree and reach my arms out, which I consider have a pretty decent wingspan, and not be able to touch the sides of the tree. And for me, man, I was just like, wow, this is crazy. It's one of the moments where I feel like, that there is a God, because there's nothing that you see here is man-made, and man could even create or think of something of this magnitude. But I share this story because, when you think about trees, I grew up with the idea that, the tree's roots, right, runs deep, right? So I was taught the tree's roots run as deep as they are tall. And that was what I thought. I was like, man, imagine how deep these roots are when you look at these trees to be as tall as they are. But what I learned through research and what I read, they had a sign out there you can read as you walk around, was that the actual roots of a redbud tree is no more than 6 to 12 feet deep. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. But what's unique about it is that the reason the redwood trees have survived for we know at least 2,000 years, right? They say they're as old as dinosaurs, right? So we know that these trees have been around a long time. And one of the key characteristics of the tree that allows it to live this long is its root system. And what makes them be able to survive is that the roots are not deep. The roots actually spread and they intertwine with the other redwoods near them, and that they rely on each other for energy and support for their success. And so my closing thoughts is that as we continue to build this community that we have from real estate investors, we can continue to survive, we can be sustainable, and we can withstand whatever comes our way as long as we continue to reach out and obtain energy from each other. And so with that being said, I'll open up for question and answer and appreciate all the support and the love that's been shared thus far in the chat.
Wow, man, I'm blown away, baby. I don't even know where to start, boy. I'm telling you, mind blowing, man. I'm gonna say this, and then we're gonna get to questions. The first time I met Johnny Whitfield, I think I was making a presentation up in Tulsa somewhere, and after the presentation, Johnny came over to me and said, "Hey, man." We need to go to lunch. I need to talk to you, get to know you. You know, I was like, oh, okay, who's this new brother? I don't even know who you are. So, but from there, I mean, he was just, man, what you doing? Tell me. I mean, I heard what you were saying and it resonated. I don't even know what I was saying, Johnny, but you know how I am when I get on the stage, baby. I got to say it like it is. But his whole desire was he wanted to learn. And so that to me, when somebody comes to me and they tell me they want to learn, baby, I'm all ears, baby. I'm all. But let's get to the questions. This boy just broke y'all off something. So let's go ahead. If you want to turn your video now so we can see you, and then let's just start asking questions to Johnny.
Mm-hmm. You've been in there.
Hey, Johnny, I have a question.
Yes, Tina.
Could you tell us your worst tenant experience and what you learned from it?
Yeah. It was a lady that had the roaches. Well, one, I was passively aggressive in this situation because it was a home that I had rented through what do you call it? HUD, OHFA. And I had fell in love with getting that deposit every month. And I turned a blind eye to what I call not respecting the property. And what I've learned from that is that the money that I was receiving monthly was not equitable to the value of that home, and that when you have standards that you're trying to uphold, it's important that you remain diligent in that, so that you don't lower your standards for the sake of someone else.
Thanks. Do you also make your tenants have renter's insurance, or is that their decision?
Yeah, that's their decision. I don't think by law I can require them to have renter's insurance. That's their decision. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah. Hey, Johnny, this is Polly. Yeah, I see that you mentioned that you purchased homes through multiple avenues. Which one of those were your best experience?
So best experience, it depends on how you define experience, right? So if I defined it on how the actual transaction went,
Yeah.
that would have been through probably an MLS where you have real estate agents involved that does a lot of the legwork and make it pretty seamless. If I define it by the value that I was able to acquire, I would say it was probably the auctions. And unfortunately, auctions were cash auctions. But again, where I'm at, it's not a lot of sharks. So I actually won the auction, and the reserve was not even met. But the bank was just ready to get rid of the property.
Oh, wow. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Hi. So are a lot of your properties in Wewoka or Okmulgee?
Where did Wewoka come from? Somebody must say that in the
Put
chat.
that out there, man.
Oh man, come on, right? Well, actually, all of them are in Okmulgee. So my family is from Wewoka, but I grew up in actually Okmulgee. So, and I've been looking at Wewoka, but if I'm being honest, my only fear with going to Wewoka is it make me have to say no to family. And then that's where we talked about in other conversations about renting a family is usually not a good deal. And so that's kind of why I've stayed away from that place. Are you from Wewoka? Who asked that question? Are you been there?
No, I drive past it when I'm going to Dallas, but I'm from Oklahoma City.
Oh, man, that's a little Chicago. You might need to slow down and take a look. Now, don't plan on staying a long time. It's not a lot to see, but that's the wee town.
Do you still work with HUD? Like, I know you were talking about that property with the roaches,
Mhm.
and that was through HUD. Do you
Yeah.
still work with them?
No, I found that I've been able to rent them regard. I don't need to go through HUD. I've had a couple that has approached me that we've talked to, but I have not had to go through them at this point. Now, I will tell you that I actually got two properties right now that it's not HUD, but the Creek Nation. The Creek Nation actually pays for these individuals to rent in our property. So I guess you can say it's a government agency that is actually filling the bill.
Hey, Johnny, you mentioned that as you are planning on doing your 2025 expansion, you're going to consider bringing on a property manager. Have you considered controls for the property manager that may be different than what you're doing with your dad right now?
No, not really. I've done a little bit of reading on it. I actually want to own the actual property management company and employ someone that would manage my property along with others. And so that would be my approach. There is a couple people there that actually do real estate that I've been really kind of thinking about maybe approaching them to look at establishing this property management venture.
Okay.
Well, Ray, I think we ran out of questions, man. So again, man, thanks for the opportunity to share, and look forward to growing with the community, man.
And you knocked it out of the park, baby, just like I knew you would. Whenever you can trust somebody, they don't even need to send you their presentation before you put them on your show. Because he already got it like that. So I don't even worry about it. So man, I am so thankful and grateful to have you in my life. We crossed paths again, still sharpening steel. You're taking this thing to a whole nother level. And we're going to be raising up some more just like us, baby. First generation millionaire. Assets in the ground, baby, is where it is. I mean, you just don't get me started. We won't go there. But again, Johnny, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your friendship. And man, you broke out some stuff there. I'm going to have to post this one out there on YouTube. We'll clean it up a little bit, but
so that means I get some of them royalties that you're talking about. You're gonna be getting. Can I get a piece of them royalties?
Well,
Can I get a slice?
we'll talk about that later, man.
All right.
Hey, but yeah, man, thank you again so much. So, the time is getting out there a little late. So what I'm thinking, I was going to do the quiz. I know some of you, I'll send the quiz out there to you. So for everybody else, if you wanna, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. I'm gonna take a 5-minute break, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna answer that quiz for those of you who want the answer, because nobody got it right. So in 5 minutes, I got 8:05. At 8:10, we're gonna start back. So take your little break, then we're gonna answer the question. Anybody can say it. You want to stay, you don't have to be part of the team, but I want my team to have the answers to the questions. So 5 minutes, I'll be back at 8:10. right, we back, baby. We are back live and remote. Just want to remind you all why we're here. We're here, Mr. Ray, and all the people that work for me, which is none. I'm a one-man CEO wrecking crew, baby, and I'm here to provide the necessary coaching, training, mentoring for minority students so they can learn how to acquire investment property that's going to increase their financial net worth and build real wealth for future generations, baby. We're making first generation millionaires up in here. All right, so let's get to the quiz. I'm getting hungry, so I'm gonna make sure we run through this pretty quick, but I want to take time to answer your questions if you got any questions along the way. Well, I'm gonna go back through this later. I don't have time today. We're just gonna go right to the quiz. All right, so here we are on the quiz. Let me put it up here. All right, we already had the quiz up. All right, so the assumptions for the quiz today was we had ARV for this property. This is a single family property, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 2-car garage. We say ARV, which is the after repair value on this property, is going to be $130,000. Okay, the purchase price, which is what the seller is selling the property for, is $110,000. So I'm going to buy this property for $110,000 cash. I don't have time to go to the bank. It's not on the market. This person has had some issues in the family. They just want to sell, and so I can get it for a discount, and that's how you get these deals. Now, I know the bank will loan me 80% of the value of that $130,000, so I got that in my mind, right? And I also know that I got pre-approved for a mortgage loan for 25 years at 4.75 on real estate investment property. I can do that. And I also am estimating on this particular property that there's going to be 5,000 repairs. I got to do some painting, maybe change some ceiling fans, maybe have to change some carpet in some area. I don't know. But I also know that I can get approximately $1,100 rent for this property in this area because I've done my market research and I know what rent's going for in those areas. And I said I want to use the BRRRR strategy. Now, people say, what is the BRRRR strategy, Mr. Ray? Well, the BRRRR strategy is you buy it, you rehab it, you rent it, then you refinance it, and you repeat it, baby. That's how we build the equity, and we build our strategy around putting as least amount of money in the property as we have to. And then at the last deal I said on this assumption, I wanted you to make sure that you finance in whatever closing costs. So here we go. We got a cash purchase of $110,000. We got closing costs of $3,000. And I also told you what the taxes, the insurance, the vacancy, and the repairs were. So those are the assumptions. Any questions on the assumptions? All right, let's keep going. So first of all, we want to solve for the maximum allowable offer. Then we're going to solve for the monthly mortgage payment. We're going to determine what the net cash flows are, what the net operating income is, and then what's the return on the investment. So let's talk about after repair value. Most of you know this. We're going to go real quick. The after repair value is just the value of the property after it's been totally repaired and ready for market, right? Some people call it the appraised value. Some people call it the market value. It's all determined about what properties are selling for in that particular area, right? We're not talking about the condition it's in. We're talking about the condition it will be in once we repair it. So we also need to start with this loan to value, right? So what is loan to value? Well, loan to value is nothing more than the percentage of the ARV, the after repair value, that the bank is willing to pay you on investment property. So the loan to value is typically 70, 80%. That's what banks normally do. So in our assumption, I said, I wanted you to use 80% of the value because I know the bank will finance and it will give me 80% of whatever the after repair value is. So in this particular quiz that I gave you, I said that the ARV was 130. So you multiply that times 0.8. That means the bank will give me $104,000 because that property, once I fix it up, is going to be worth 130. Any questions? All right, keep moving. So now we got to determine what's the maximum amount of money that I can offer for this property and still be able to make money based on whatever my criteria is. And so when you're thinking about the maximum allowable offer, always take whatever the percentage of the ARV, and we talked about there was 80%. So we're talking about the 130 times 0.8, that gives me my 104. So the 104 negative whatever I think it's going to cost me to get that property up to that ARV. In this case, I said it was $5,000, right? So the ARP was 130, need 5,000 in repairs. We know what the loan to value is. And so there you go. So we got the loan amount and we got the repairs. We got to subtract that out because that's money that's going to come out of our pocket also. So we can say, I should only pay $99,000 for this property if I want to do a complete burn. Okay, so that's the maximum allowable offer. That was the answer I was looking for. Any questions on that?
Yeah, Ray, this is Polly.
Yeah.
So you didn't subtract the closing costs because you mentioned that was financed in the loan, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's why you don't show it there.
Okay.
Otherwise, you could have showed it here and subtracted that 3,000. But I specifically wanted to make sure you guys that you always put those closing costs in there because the bank will allow you to do it. That's less money out of your pocket. Any other questions? Okay, so the next one, what is the, we know we have a 1% rule. And so the 1% rule basically says we take 1% of whatever the ARV is, and that should be about what we should expect in rent. If we're not sure that we can get that, then we don't even do any other discussions, right? And so we know that the ARV, and I'm sorry, I gotta correct myself. It's not the ARV, it's the cost of the property, right? So let me change this slide right here, right now. I am so sorry, that's not the ARV, that is the cost of the property. If I had to have my trusty assistant check this, I wouldn't have made that mistake. Hold on. Let me come back in. So it's really 1% of the cost of the property, not the ARV, because that would have been 130, and that means rent would have had to been 1,300. So it's always the cost of the property. So if I can get it, you know, after I repair it, it's up to 130. I don't expect to get, you know, $1,300 rent in that area, but I do expect to get the amount that I paid for the property. Does that make sense? Any questions? So I can expect from a $100,000 house that I can get $1,000 in rent. That's my expectation. All right, let's go to the next. So now we want to determine what's the monthly mortgage payment based on our assumptions. And so first of all, we got to figure out what is the amount that we're going to be financing on this loan, right? So we know we're taking 80% of the ARV, which was the 130. 80% of that is 104. 104 plus the 3,000 in closing costs is the amount that I'm going to finance. Okay. And if you do a amortization schedule, I know most of you all have a spreadsheet. There's calculators online. All you do is plug these numbers in, you'll get this number. 107,000 at 4.75% for 25 years is $610.03 a month. So that is your principal and interest on this mortgage. So let's talk about how much money I got in this deal, how much I'm going to have left in this deal after I finance. So I'm going to purchase it for what he wants for it, 110. I'm going to give him that. Plus I'm going to have 5,000 in repairs. So I'm going to have a total of $115,000 in this property. But remember, I just told you I'm going to refinance it for at 107. The bank's going to give me 80% of my money back. And so I'm going to leave $8,000 in this deal, which means I'm basically getting this property for $8,000. Any questions? Clear as mud. All right. So let's talk about what our net cash flow is. This is it right here, baby. Remember I tell you, fall in love with them numbers? Don't fall in love with them homes. We don't love them homes. We fall in love with them numbers. If the numbers make sense, that's when we make a move, baby. So in our assumption, we said that we think we can get $1,100 gross rent at this property. And so we figured what the monthly payment was. The monthly payment is going to be that $610. I just showed you how we figured that. And then we got to add in these other costs that we're going to have every month. And so we're going to have to pay the taxes, property taxes. We're going to have to pay insurance on it. And these two numbers here, we always put in. We always put in a vacancy rate and a maintenance rate. And that's just 5% of whatever the monthly gross amount is. So that always gives us that cushion over here. In fact, you don't even buy a property until you have reserves of 3 months at least for whatever, how many properties that you got based upon what the rent is. In this case, if the rent on this property is $1,100, you need to have at least $3,500 in the bank just sitting there in reserve for maintenance in case something happens to this property. And so at the end of the day, this property will cash flow after all expenses have been paid by the tenant. Johnny told you the tenant paying all the bills, baby. By the tenant. After the tenant pays all that, they're going to give you $229 every month. That's what it's about, baby. This is the key flow right here, the net cash flow. Any questions on that? Nobody got this answer right. Nobody. So we're going to start doing one of these every week until I get everybody to be able to get it right every time. And there's going to be prizes for people to get it right. From now, man, I got to incentivize this thing. We're going to put a little money out there on this thing for people that's going to get this right. So any questions before we go on? All right. So let's talk about net operating income. So the net operating income reflects the amount of money from operations, excluding the debt, right? We're not talking about the debt. We're just talking about the operation. And so in this case, the net operating income is going to be whatever the gross rent is, negative whatever expenses we have, excluding the mortgage. In this case, we got gross rent of $1,100. We're going to subtract everything but the mortgage. We're going to subtract the property taxes, the insurance, the percentages that we have for maintenance and everything else. And we're going to say net operating income on this property is going to generate $840 a month. Okay. So you take that monthly net operating income, you multiply it by 12, and you get your annual net operating income. Any questions? All right, let's keep it moving. So now let's talk about the return on our investment on this particular property. And when I'm talking about return on investment, it's really a cash on cash return. So it's the net cash flows divided by the total amount of money that I got invested in this property, right? So let's walk through that. And so again, I purchased it for $110K cash. I repaired it with my own money. So I had $115,000 of my cash in the game. I turned around after I got it fixed up. I refinanced it and took 80% of the ARV out, which means I got 107 of that 115 back. So I still got 8,000 in the deal. So now I got to look at my monthly cash flow. So I multiply them times 12, that 229 that I said I was getting extra after all my expenses, multiply that times 12. So I'm getting $2,700 a month in free cash flow on this $8,000 that I got invested. So that means if I divide that cash flow by the 8,000 I got invested, that means I'm getting 34% return on my money year one, baby. Tell me where you gonna get that at out there in the stock market, huh? Tell me that. Now, also look at my payback. I'm gonna get all my money back within 2.89 years, and I'm gonna have no money in the game. We call that free rolling, baby. When you got no money in the game and your money is back in your pocket and that property is sitting there generating you $2,759 a year. Now tell me, what's the return on your investment when you don't have no money involved? You got no money in the game, what's the return? Somebody say infinity. That's what I'm talking about, baby. That's why we in this real estate game, because we do deals like that. See, money in real estate is made when you buy the property, not when you sell it. You make money when you buy the property. Questions? I've had y'all on here all night. Johnny been breaking y'all off all night. I know you're tired, but we're going to get these last little questions in here, and we're going to call it good for the night. It's been a good session. What do you got for me? We need to go back through that quiz. I'm just going to stay here till you get it right. All right, looks like everybody's got all their questions there. Maybe we just wore you out tonight. All right, hearing nothing said, we're going to be out of here, and we'll be back on Thursday. Got another special guest. So yeah, as you know, I'm taking a little bit of break this month, and I'm bringing in special guests, and I'm sharing with you some of the guys that I hang around my network, and they breaking off a little, something for y'all. But we're gonna be here. We got another one coming up Thursday. His name is James Chappell. Chappell's gonna come in, gonna share some of that wisdom with us. So with no further ado, I'm going to end this call for tonight. Thank all of you for being here. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.